Afternoon, Mark.
Hi. Sorry, pushing the wrong buttons on my side.
No problem.
Okay, you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Cool.
Perfect. Okay. Pleased to meet you, Mark. You know what? Your name, Mark, precedes you. I've heard the name for a very long time in the industry. It was a bit of a mythical name behind things, but it's what a pleasure meeting you.
And I pronounce your name Athan.
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 Yeah, Athan. It's actually an abbreviation.
I can see how it's spelled. I just wanted to check. Okay. Okay, so I'm the elephant in the room.
How are you doing for time, Mark? Are you okay with time?
I'm fine for time.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean to say that other people think the same. But anyway, phone is muted, so that won't disturb. Yeah, I've had a look at your video collection, and I see most of your videos are between 1 minute and 5 minutes.
Yep.
I'm running Zoom from inside Mozilla at the moment because I neglected to do certain updates, and now I need to reload my laptop completely. It's a Linux machine.
Okay. Yes,
but I am using a separate microphone and camera, not the laptop unit. So it gives a reasonably good color. Yeah, it's better. Okay, so happy that we look at trying to do this then.
Mark, you just quick catch up. You said you had a look at the channel, and just a quick summary that if you look at something that I found very interesting is that the space relating to that you're in, the industry that you're in, there's a lot going on, and everything seems to be happening in the background, you know. And unlike a lot of environments that deal with heavy tech and things like that, on the international stage, it's always brought to front by things like TechCrunch, these kinds of outlets, there's a lot of communication, a lot of engagement about these technologies and things like that, which seems to be missing in the space relating to South Africa. You know, from what I can see, I mean, one of the biggest drivers at the moment basically are influencers and the influencer market coming up in order to get messages out there, to get information out there. And that's something obviously where the youngsters are, I mean, that's where you're going to find them. You know, you're going to find them on the TikToks, you're going to find them in these particular environments, consuming all kinds of information. But these local technical markets are not available in that kind of, how can I say, format. That there is no one evangelizing about technology. You know, so there is no one basically that, from what I'm aware of, that is literally broadcasting the latest happenings in South Africa, the technology in South Africa, the background of South African technology development, so forth and so on. And with that, basically, that's what inspired us to actually start getting the channel going and formulated.
Yeah, you seem to be doing a very good job in that. I mean, a lot of your videos, though I say they're only like a minute or two, the majority of them, they're all very concise. They talk about a particular point of how DNS works, and I like that. So you're doing a very nice job there. And I guess it's the people who've got great beards, like yourself and myself, that perhaps need to provide the lead to the younger people to jump in and take a look at these things.
Absolutely. I think that, you know what, for me, over the years in the space, and by the way, thank you. I'm really, it's very meaningful coming from someone like you, that this particular kind of content is something that has value or could have potential value in our local market. You know, because basically to me, the combination of technology and entrepreneurship, which obviously resonates to employment, to development, you know, to changing one's mindset, to be able to start dreaming, to be inspired, to develop visions and things like that. Those are the fundamentals that lead an industry, you know, and allow an industry to, or the technicality to move forward in any environment. For me, technicalities are just that. They're just technicalities, you know what I mean? They ones and zeros. But it's very, very, very difficult to develop a vision, you know, and not only just a vision that someone or people or a nation can buy into.
Yeah, look, I would agree with that. So this has been going on, this industry, since, I think it was in 2010, 2010-ish, that we started doing the training, DNS training in this country. And I mean, the first few quarters were great because people had all the Unix skills and they had an idea to how to move around the machine and stuff like that. So the hands-on training that we did actually went very well. And I believe a lot of those people, like myself, really believe in things like automation. The result of this, I believe, is that almost all of the ISP systems are either have been automated in-house now, or they're using one of the WHMCS plugins or something, so that by and large, literally everything now is automated, which in some sense removes the spontaneity for new people to get involved because everything, quote, works already. And maybe that's good and maybe that's bad because it's stopping people from coming in and doing interesting things in this environment.
With that, Mark, I always think when I look at things and I look at environments, and I like to look at local comparisons and relating to, for example, let me give you an example which would be even better. Cape Town and Johannesburg, you know, for some reason, Cape Town is seen as the technology center, or the place where technology basically is coming from. It seems to have a technology culture, you know, and all the guys that are playing now on an international stage, people like Vinnie Lingam and things like that from South Africa, have always been focused around the Western Cape. You know, Stellenbosch is also Stellenbosch University. Everything is very focused around technology. And more importantly, the fostering of the culture of technology. You know, and for me, I've always believed that it's very, you know, technology on its own is one thing. But if a culture is created around it, I mean, that's how I got into technology. You know, I got into technology not through the desire of it, but because I happened to stumble into a community that involved themselves with a website back then called HastaLaVista.com. You know what I mean? And they were into the dark web and hacking, and you know, it's so that was my introduction. But it was the culture that these were my friends, you know, and that's where the learning came from. That's where the development came from. And I see a lot of that happening in the Cape region, you know. For example, the Silicon Cape, you know what I mean? That's a community, you know what I mean, that foster, develop technology, they groom it. everybody's connected, everybody knows each other, and they're massive communities. But I have not seen the same anywhere outside of the Western Cape. Everything seems to be very outside of the Western Cape. Everything seems to be very commerce driven, not developmentally driven, not passion driven, and not community driven. And I might be I might be wrong, but I think your take on that would be interesting. Since you've been around in the technology space, literally since the development of it locally.
Yeah, look, yes, you're quite right. Well, we can blame it on Mark Shuttleworth, if you like. I mean, he did all his creations down in Cape Town. He was also one of the great users of the co.za Whois system, so he could validate to see that the people he was talking to were in fact the people he thought he was talking to. And that helped make him a millionaire and the first South African in space and stuff like that. If I guess if I had the choice, especially with what's happening in South Africa at the moment, doing what I'm doing from Cape Town might be rather a nice idea. If you think about it, the government down there seems to be a little bit better. The communications, you've got the comms cables coming into Cape Town anyway from the west coast rather than anywhere else. So technically it's not a bad place probably to be. My stepdaughter's down there, loves the place, and my wife has also suggested that she wouldn't mind moving down there as well. So maybe one day I will semigrate down there or something like that, and work from Cape Town as well. Having said that, we did a DNS training course last week. It's now Wednesday? Yeah, last week, Monday through Thursday, up to it's ending just before Friday, Easter. And we had 4 or 5 students from Pretoria University, and they really helped bring life to the training course. They were young, they were inquisitive, they were doing the coursework before I was asking them to do the coursework, so quite enthusiastic. And I believe they were also, some of them were actually doing some work for domain name services, the back-end provider for POSIX, etc.
Mark, just on that, with this kind of training that you've been involved with, what's the potential scope in the industry for these? Generally, I take it that the majority of you dealing with is youth here, because if I look at it from the top of my head, most of the SADC region is basically in its infancy in infrastructure development. So for me, naturally, that says that, if they're in their infancy with infrastructure development, for the SADC region, the scope for DNS is literally wide open. Unlike very few other industries, like mining and things like that, where you might be, dealing with a very, very saturated market, you know what I mean? And the scope might not be there, but for things like DNS that are basically, how could I say, fundamentals. Am I correct with making that assumption that the scope is wide open?
Start a business. After 12 years. Yeah, we understand that it takes a lot. It takes a lot to earn trust. For you to put your faith in us. We are here because of you. Driving through the villages of the Eastern Cape The valleys of Limpopo and the skyscrapers of Jozi. Takes a lot, but Oksalayo, Wapusha. It takes a lot to make every day feel special, to make South Africans smile. One thing though, it does not take a lot to say Enkosi, buy a donkey.
Sorry, the courier guy arrived. Meant to have been here much earlier. What I was saying is last week we had two gentlemen from BOCRA, the Botswana regulator, who are also administrating the .bw domain name system, and they came on the intro course, and they learnt a lot, I believe. And I should be going to Botswana when we arrange it to go and give them some advanced training, how to sign a zone and things like that. So what you say. But on the other hand, the DNS environment in South Africa, I would say, is pretty mature. And my basis from saying that is, amongst my other sins, I'm also on, for the second time ever, the ICANN DNS study of Africa system study. We did it in 2016, which is more like 2017. And we basically were doing that last year, in fact, completed it on April the 1st. Someone didn't look at their calendar to see it was a public holiday, but never mind. And that's now complete. And in that, we can see, if you look at your typical S-curve of development, South Africa is definitely at the top of the curve. And yes, it will grow. It will reflect the state of the nation, the economy of the nation, no doubt. Whereas most other countries, they're still accelerating at the bottom part of the curve. And we can see that from graphs and other things like that. If you're interested and you've got the time of day, go look at observatory.dnsstudy.africa, or if you can't remember, just observatory.africa, and you can click on things and it will show you some charts and stuff like that. Yes, I agree. We're definitely developing in the SADC region, and there's a lot of reason to go out and do DNS training and to help people with web pages, hosting domains, and other things like that. Yes.
Mark, just on that, and still staying with the same narrative, that the scope is definitely there from what you're stating. If I might, where would you project? And I mean, look, I know it's a hard thing, and especially when you're dealing with Africa. But just say you could. Where do you think the SADC region, and I'm including South Africa in that, would be 10 years from now? You know, if you could make a estimation relating to DNS, do you think the rest of SADC will have the same, be equivalent to that of South Africa, you know, or do you think that we would now, the entire SADC region in Africa would be on par with Western nations?
In 10 years, we should be. I mean, these two studies were done about 5 years apart, and we can see the increase in growth in basically everywhere. There is an increase of growth in South Africa, just not as much anymore. In fact, looking at it, because we had all the data from South Africa last time, we could do a proper comparison with this time, and we've lost probably over 500,000 domain names. So 500,000 domain names have not been renewed. On the other hand, there's still many more domain names than there was 5 years ago. That would suggest that we could definitely have another, probably another 1 million domain names in South Africa in 10 years' time, potentially. I have no idea what's going to happen. And I guess the same is true. I would expect most domain name systems to double or triple over the next 10 years in SADC countries, definitely.
Double or triple in other countries. Obviously, look, I think there are a variety of things that make the whole that I think would align with that projection. You know, the level of investment and development within inside of the SADC region, the growth of the region population-wise, things like that, and also as things look, it's difficult to say when it comes to Africa and the political stability. You know, I think that is always a big question mark on how, because look, political stability have a direct influence on business investment, which has a direct influence on employment, development, these kinds of fundamentals. So, but I do think that, you know, with the African Union and things like that, I do think that inside of, if political stability is a marker, I do think that there's quite a significant effort in order to kind of stabilize things so that other growth formats can feed into it and have that particular influence on technology development, employment, growth overall. Mark, on another point, and I mean, if I can divert slightly from where we are, can I ask you to just give us some feedback of how you got involved, you know, in the DNS space? Personally, you know, what was your involvement? Why? What drove you? What, you know, just give us a little bit of background of your experience, your initial experience into the particular space.
Okay, so I came to South Africa in 1983 from the UK. Before that, in the UK, I was at university in Queen Mary College, Mile End, down on Mile End Road in London, in the east side of London. From day one there, I was given a login on a Unix machine, PDP 1140, and which is where my MJE comes from, because there was already a Mark on the system, and the guy standing in front of me was also called Mark. So he became Mark B, so I chose my initials. Very important what you choose in the early days. I had an opportunity of working in South Africa for 2 years, and I thought, well, that'll look good on my CV for when I get my next job. So I came out to a little company called Ucom Systems just down the road from Wits. And before the 2 years was up, Olivetti came headhunting me. But while I was at Ucom Systems, for example, I can remember going around to the northern part of Braamfontein and buying a Hayes smart modem, a 2400 baud smart modem. And the two guys selling it to me was Richard Kame and Jeremy Ord. So Richard Kame is now the CEO or whatever it is of the board, chief of the board of Dark Fiber Africa, and Jeremy Ord of that other little IT company, whatever it's called. Anyway, so you know, I had that modem, and I was playing around with UUCP, Unix to Unix copying, which would allow you to send mails and other things, as well as file transfers and stuff. I thought you said this was going to be 30 to 45 minutes long. Okay, so yes, I moved to Olivetti. We were playing with Ethernet cards, and I had the opportunity to go down to Rhodes University and learn about PC router from a gentleman by the name of Mike Laurie, who you have already done a bit of history on. And that allowed me to do Ethernet over RS-232. So I then wired most of my half of the building to get into the accounting system over Ethernet and into one port on the big accounting system, whereas everyone was using individual RS-232. That developed. We ended up with a 64K line around the country. Somewhere along the lines, I've got to think of the names properly now, but Mike Laurie's predecessor, Vic Shaw, came to me at one point and said, "Hey, Mark, I've got ZA, so I've got AC.ZA for the academic people." He was from the FRD, Foundation for Research and Development. "Would you like to run CO.ZA? And you just need to write up some documents and things." And I had no clue. No one else seemed to be able to help me. Left it. Anyway, unfortunately, he passed away. Mike Laurie stepped into his shoes, created CO.ZA with Alan Barrett. And after a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, we had an internet meeting. Internet Solutions and Internet Africa, or TIX, or whatever they were called, were then starting to become friendly and realizing it was stupid to send an email from a customer of one via the USA to the customer of the other. So we were getting in, starting from a technical point of view, to get into bed with each other.
Seen and valid. What did that? What was the driving force behind that? In your, from your opinion.
Okay, so if I can go back a step or two, the time between CO.ZA being created and run by the FRD, between me then taking it over, I obviously registered a few domains of myself. For example, POSIX.co.za, which is the name of my ISP, and a few others. And I also learned about the bit of paperwork that I was meant to do, and it would be a non-issue then when I stuck my hand up to volunteer. Uniforum itself at the time was a Unix user group, and it had sort of lost meaning to a huge extent. There wasn't a need for a Uniforum. We were meeting once a month in a bar or something like that, just to talk about what we've been doing. So adding in COSA was a good thing. And the first thing I did is I started automating it. I made it so that if a person was to send through a text-based email with basically the form inside the text of the email, that my machine would take it, process it, and it would be inside the zone for the next 15-minute clock tick, which would mean that it would be up and running. We would then invoice the person afterwards, which meant that from within a month or so of us taking it over, you could register a CO.ZA from anywhere in the world. There were no restrictions, and it'd be up and running within the next 15-minute clock tick. You get your invoice, your VAT invoice, eventually over the internet. I think I was one of the first people to do VAT invoices over the internet, and it would be up and running. And if you didn't pay, then the domain would be removed. It was that simple. We had the same system for everyone. It was the same price. It was initially the 200 Rand for everyone. And we didn't care who you were or what language you spoke. If you wanted the CO.ZA, you could get it. So we made it exceedingly easy to get a CO.ZA in comparison to many of the other systems. And I guess we were fortunate. People like Radio 702, you've got 702.co.za, they picked it up, as did many other people. So the people that we miss would be perhaps South African Airways, because they don't want to be associated with .co.za, but in fact, I think you'll find that SAA.co.za in fact does work. So I believe that was part of the secret, and the fact that we treated everyone the same, and yeah, it grew, and it grew very quickly. And because people like radio stations and and people online, whether it's TV or whatever, were using it, they would give out their domain name, and it would be blah blah blah.co.za. So it caught on in favor very, very quickly, and I believe that was the great success of getting a co.za.
Yeah, that look, I mean, over such a short period of time and such early adoption for this particular type of technology, you know, because look, the whole idea of domain names was still relatively new, you know, and especially outside of .com. Basically, it was either a .com or nothing, and domains looked to me, for me, from a business point of view, everything needed to make sense to them, you know. So if it wasn't a .com, a lot of people didn't even know that South Africa had its own extension, you know, which was the co.za. And but for me, once again, I think what you're actually trying to say, Mark, is that somehow technology resonates with South Africans. That if you give them, if you break down the barriers to access, they will adopt and adapt. You know, and that, for me, that is also just a precedent and speaks to that if we break down a lot of the red tape, we will allow for greater development. You know, I think that is the co.za speaks as a marker of what we as a nation are capable of if we are given and the right facilities, open access, you know. So if you, let's just say, if you open the markets for us, we won't collapse, we'll thrive. Keep the markets closed, that's going to impede on our development and our growth. Open the markets, you know, unleash us, allow us to unleash ourselves. You know what I mean? The country's not going to implode, it will explode.
I think that's actually a very important thing. Look, the other thing that we did is we reduced the price. We dropped, initially it was 200 Rand for a new domain and 50 Rand for a renewal. Oh, sorry, 50 Rand for an update. There was no renewal. And then saw the fact that this wasn't going to work and went 50 Rand for a yearly rate. And we dropped the 200. First of all, we started paying VAT. So it was initially 200 excluding VAT. Then when we paid VAT, it was 200 including VAT. Then it dropped to 150 and 100, basically down to 50 Rand. So that a renewal and a new domain were the same price. And I think you'll find that if it's at 50 Rand, I can't remember what the Rand exchange rate was, but it was relatively comparable to the price of a .com. So it was actually, and now it's a lot cheaper to buy a co.za than a .com. So we're cheaper. And the South Africans are very conscious about money in their pocket, or money leaving their pocket, rather. So that's helped us win. We also had the money, so then we started doing things like going overseas to the pre-ICANN events and then ICANN events. And we've always compared ourselves to the .uk, New Zealand, and Australia. So we've looked to see what other people have done, and if we like the idea, then we've implemented it locally. So we've spec'd ourselves properly as well. And I believe that's also been a great strength for South Africa. The other thing is the infrastructure in South Africa is actually damn good. I noticed that you don't host locally, by the way. Traitor, you're giving our money to the Americans or something. But the infrastructure we've got in South Africa is actually very good. We've got Terraco. I was unsure about Terraco's business plan. I mean, I had my own DC at one point. But locally, DC's data centers have worked very well. We also had some of the earliest peering points in Africa, which that came back from that sort of second meeting when Mike Laurie basically handed up co.za. And we've been peering ever since. And if you've got strong peering and you've got strong data centers, you're going to have a good system. The majority of South African domains are hosted in South Africa. If you look around our borders, almost all of Lesotho is hosted in South Africa. A large percentage of Botswana, basically Botswana is, and Namibia is also in South Africa. And it could be either in Johannesburg or Cape Town, doesn't matter. Johannesburg's definitely stronger on that aspect than Cape Town. We've got better, better data centers or whatever you want to call it, or more people using them in Johannesburg than Cape Town. So these things have all increased the strength of the internet industry, including domain names and people registering with a name in South Africa. At one point, we tried to work out how many domains we could sell. So we went to and looked at the number of companies registered and said, oh, well, that's the number. I have no idea what that number is. And I believe we superseded it some time ago. Because we never realized, for example, that SAB, South African Breweries, well, they have a domain, that's fine. Next. Well, no, they don't have a domain. They have several domains because they've got one basically for every brand of beer. And that makes perfect sense. And a lot of other people have done that same sort of thing as well. I mean, I've got 20, 30 domains probably myself, but never mind. So, yeah, that's been our strength and how we've grown.
That you know, Mark, it just looks at the amount of things that come together in order to facilitate growth. You know, it's always an astounding thing. And to a large extent, like you said, you know what, if you look back at the data points, you know what I mean, what got put into play, I think it's really, you would think, okay, look, there's a lot of things that come to play at a specific time in order to facilitate the growth, you know, but the reality about it is that, you know what, these things are passion driven, you know what I mean, they are vision driven, they are motivated, and them coming together, it's a matter of, look, I'm not saying luck is not involved, you know, but it is also just a matter and a reflection of what's going on with inside of the communities, the people, for these levels of development to take place. You know, because once again, making the investment, even if it's a personal time investment, time is a very expensive commodity, you know, probably the most expensive commodity that there is. Not to know where the future is going to take this, you know, the investment on your time, not knowing what the outcome is going to be, and having a lot of other factors play into it at the same time to facilitate that. And like you said, you know what, that can be looked at relating to the amount of data centers within inside of the country, you know, how much investment there's going to be inside of the country for data centers moving forward, the amount of international conglomerates setting up, the competition between, you know what, whether it's Takealot and Amazon, you know, and the training centers, the facility, all these things acclimatizing more or less at the same time and making sure that they can, you know, go through that brewing mechanism at the same time to produce something of value, you know. And that I find very interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic in the technological space that everybody's playing a part in. Mark, you know, I know we've been sitting on this line for quite some time, and I do think that just getting back to the training, can you just give us a little bit of insight relating to the kind of training that you do? Who's it for? You know what I mean? How can people access your training? You know, so who's it for? Who's the target market for your training? How can people access those that want to understand more about DNS and this particular type of technology? And where would they go? Where do they go to access the training?
Okay, so let's start at the why we do training initially, because literally no one else does training. And the why was, many years ago, ICANN held a meeting, their worldwide meeting. They held it in Cape Town. And we were their hosts in Cape Town. and help fund the event in Cape Town. And there was the gentleman, Johannerin, had his training course, and he gave it like he normally does at an ICANN meeting. Now, some people then stated that these dudes from Uniforum haven't a clue what DNS is. They're doing it all wrong. We should do it. We should make their money rather than them making the money. They're doing this wrong, that wrong, etc. So there was two approaches. We could either fight them with words, or what we chose to do was to provide the training course. They shut up after that. So the other approach is quite selfish. If people are properly trained, then we'll get a lot less people ringing through to the support desk asking us questions. And that's definitely also happened, or the reduction. So the training courses are actually cheaper than having an extra person probably on staff. So yes, we did the training courses, we opened them up, we made them free. Initially, it was just a lot of what we call the introductory courses. And then as things like DNSSEC became apparent, we did an intro course and an advanced course. We used to do either an intro in Johannesburg and the advanced in Cape Town, one part of the year, or 6 months into the other part of the year, we would do the intro course in Cape Town and the advanced in Joburg. So a person could do the intro course and then after 6 months do the advanced course. Or they could follow us if they're from Durban and do both of them back to back or something like that. Then .Africa came out, and an awful lot of money was put into making sure that we won .Africa so that we could actually run .Africa for Africa. And therefore we couldn't run the free training courses anymore due to financial considerations. At that time, Uniforum changed its name to ZACR, a central registry. And the guys who basically started the whole system moved sideways or backwards into the company DNS. We were all the wrong skin color, and politics came into it. And we also had the ECT Act, where the creation of ZADNA was also created, but they didn't do anything for 2 years. We bought ourselves a building, and ZADNA actually moved into a couple of the rooms of our building. And then ZADNA decided no, that they needed to run as much as possible. So they were given authority over ZA per se. And they had one person who could actually do DNS, but never mind. And they also decided they needed a lot more money from the DNS and the ZACR people. So they took a lot of extra money, which also meant that we couldn't do training because there was no training money available. So then they volunteered to pay for the training because they could see it was the right thing to do. They were doing their own training. They were doing outreach into the middle of nowhere. And I still have a bit of a problem with that. I don't see what's wrong in doing sort of pseudo intro courses or something. But if the bulk of the people that want to register domains are living in the city areas, Durban, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Bloemfontein, then that should be where the training is concentrated from my point of view, as that is where the people are. So in many ways, ZADNA actually has slowed down the growth, I would say, of the ZA system, domain name system in many ways, because they do many other things that are not terribly related to the industry from my point of view. And they don't also look after ZA very well, but that's a personal opinion. But anyway, what we have done is we have now managed to, or they are now paying paying us to do the training again. The problem is Johan, who is the lead trainer, is from Sweden. So he comes out now. He likes to come out, say, once a year. He's getting on a bit, so he prefers to fly business. I can't see what's wrong with that. So it's a bit expensive. So the deal now is that we will probably do advanced DNS training in Johannesburg and Cape Town towards the end of the year. And around about this time of the year, we're looking at doing the intra courses, and we may look at doing intra courses in Johannesburg, Cape Town, maybe twice a year in both areas. I'm now running the intra course, so which means it's a lot cheaper to run the intra courses than it was before. And Johan can just come out once a year to basically run the advanced course. The intra course is pretty much stable. We cover everything: how to set up a domain, secondaries, how to use TSIG to secure the secondaries together, and also how to switch on DNSSEC validation if you don't know how to do that. The advanced course goes into, well, setting up the same structure, but you basically have all the files, and then doing things like well, DNSSEC and other security issues and other variations of what people do here today. There is a URL and for training, and the URL is, so I quickly type it in, dnstraining.zarc.net.za. So ZACR Central Registry changed to ZARC, the Registry Consortium, which was basically ZADNA telling us, no, we're not going to re-sign your contract. ZACR, we want you to tender for the job, even if you are the only people in the country that can do it. Hey, we may even choose someone outside of the country to do it. Threats like that. So DNS and ZACR got together, became ZARC, the Registry Consortium, and won the contract again. Like I said, I really don't think that ZADNA has done a great job in many ways. You actually need to check the video you made on ZADNA. You have a lot of facts which are correct, but I would disagree with some of your facts as well. Anyway, that's where we are from a DNS training point of view. So yes, if you go to DNS Training, relatively easy, .zarc.net.za, it will take it to you. You will be taken to the training. Now, at the moment, there are no more courses set up because we have to get approval by ZADNA before we do a training course. So we've done the one, we're finalizing all the comments, etc., that we've got from this course last week. And once that's settled, we'll look at trying to do more training. So there's nothing on the agenda at the moment. I run the course system, and I guess if people were to contact me, I might just remember their names and let them know when the training is going to be. But otherwise, like I said, towards the end of the year and around about this time of the year as well, before Easter. I hope that helps.
Mark, of course that helps. That helps a lot. Mark, I know we've been on the call for a while. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. I know there's a lot of technicality or glitches on the call, but you know what? I think the information, matters. And I would like to ask you, if we can follow up in the future, because I don't think it's just a matter of, just a once-off interview, but actually having this kind of information as things change, with technology especially and organizations, and as things change, have some kind of access to your environment where this change can be discussed and broadcasted, and other people can be included in these types of conversations, you know what I mean, or actually just know what's going on, or be abreast of what's happening with the training, and access to it moving forward. But once again, Mark, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your patience. Hopefully we will be able to get another interview more in depth with with you soon in the near future.
I've got at least another 2 interviews in me. I mean, I haven't told you that I won the ZADNA's DNS Personality of the Year, and all sorts of wonderful things like how to do DNSing. So yes, I look forward to that.
Yeah, congratulations about that award, Mark. Well done.
Thank you very much.